This is Rod Boomer Guitar Sessions. Today we are going to reminisce about Mrs. Rollman's music class in 1976, where we learned that chords are 3 or more notes played in unison. And that rule was ironclad. Or was it? That's what we're going to discuss today. All right, so the many schools of thought that indeed triads are, it has to be at least a triad or it's not a chord. Okay, and also the other definition of a chord is these chords are built in thirds. That's the other Mrs. Rollman ironclad definition of rules that we used to build chords. Same all through my schooling, that those were definitions that could not be refuted. All right, today we're going to make the attempt to see if it is as ironclad as we thought they were. So, answering the question, are power chords chords? Now, what is music? Music is the science or art, according to Webster's, of ordering tones and sounds to produce a composition having unity and continuity. Theory is the general or abstract principles of a body of knowledge, a science, or a art. A body of knowledge or a art, abstract principles. These are building blocks. How a particular style, how does it work? How does it behave? What are the ingredients of that style? All right. So when I say this, the ironcladness of Kumbaya, my Lord. Whatever we were doing in 1976 in music class, and sing along with Mitch and Mrs. Rollman, and she had her auto harp, and I love Mrs. Rollman. She was my first music teacher. That was ground zero for me. But that doesn't define everything that would happen. And it didn't define everything then. That was Mrs. Rollman's, where Mrs. Rollman was. Okay, and where music education was, to be fair to her. All right, so with that said, we study music, we find out that not only are 3-note harmony, but those 3 notes are built in thirds. That rule was ironclad as well. It's like, so we have 3 or more notes, that is a chord, and those chords must be organized in groupings of a third. Okay, so later on down the road, a lot later on down the road, we get into learning about different styles of music, and then I'm going to play something for you, and we're going to talk about it a little bit. Back in the late 1950s, Miles Davis, Milestones, and the Kind of Blue recordings, they were experimenting with note groupings that were a fourth apart. And what we all love about Miles Davis is he wasn't worried about rules. He wasn't worried about semantics. Chords are grouped in thirds. Some chords are grouped in thirds. That is the definition that Miles Davis didn't care. He wasn't a theorist. He just created great music that we are all listening to 60 plus years later. All right. So with that said, so Miles Davis's chords, McCoy Tyner, okay, they were groupings of fourths. When we talk about groupings of 3, like in thirds, that like those chords behave completely different than fourth chords. Okay, completely different set of rules. These chords That's for another lesson. But those are fourths. What that later was called was chordal harmony. Chordal harmony. Okay, it is 4-note chords. It wasn't thought that Miles Davis, when he played his music, that he wasn't playing chords just because they were built in fourths. Okay, the construction of his chords were not thirds, they were fourths, and his chords did behave differently via McCoy Tyner and via later Herbie Hancock. And Herbie Hancock is a legend because he was a master of both tertial harmony, which is chords built in thirds, and chordal harmony. All right? So, around the same time, all this Miles Davis innovation is happening. We have people slicing speakers on their amplifiers to create distorted sounds. Guitar players realized that in order to play some kinds of rock music, you do not need to have full voice chords. It sounds hokey if you use full voice chords. Okay? Many styles of rock never touch full voice chords. Okay? So with that said, we would have something like that. Now, entire bands would write songs around these sounds. They're 2-note voicings. What do we call those 2-note voicings? Those songs that had those voicings instead of chords, do we say that that song does not have chords? All right? Because our definition of chords is 3 notes. Okay. I say when music theory changes with the music that's being created, the theory comes after the creation of music. Okay? So we have power chords. That's what these have become known as. All right? If we invert those 2 notes, that behaves by its own particular set of rules that is different than triads. Okay? So those intervals, fourths and fifths, those are what we call in rock music theory to be power chords. I would consider them to be chords because they function the way a chord would function. If I'm writing a song, da 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 yeah, ba 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 ba. What you just heard there was a set of chord changes and a melody over top of it. And if I put words to that melody, that is a song. In my definition of the music theory of that song, yes, we do have chords. So therefore, the power chord is in fact a chord because rock music theory behaves differently than traditional music theory. Berklee College of Music has traditional harmony classes and they have jazz harmony classes. In order to graduate there in 1989, you needed traditional harmony classes for the state law, and then we had our jazz harmony classes because jazz behaves by a different set of rules. Okay? Just as that is the case, rock, pop music, lots of different kinds of music uses power chords, from garage rock to punk rock to heavy metal. Thousands, if not millions of songs these rules apply to. To me, it would make only sense that these power chords are chords of some sort. Now, there's ways in order for us to make them into 3-note chords through arranging for 2 guitars. But these fifths, they function as a chord would function in a song. Therefore, they are a type of chord. They're not a triad, they are a dyad. All right? That is what we shall call this new theory. It is a dyad, a chord within the dyad grouping. All right? So you can comment all you want. I want to hear what your thoughts are. Okay? Music theory should move with the music that we are playing. Music theory that does not apply to the music that we love. If we can't figure out and understand our music, then the music theory is irrelevant to us. Learning counterpoint is not going to help for everything. All right? So, with that said, yes to power chords. Yes, the music theory is a liquid, moving form, constantly creating, constantly inventing, and repurposing itself. This is Rod, Boomer Guitar Sessions. I will see you next time. And argue with me. Argue with me all you want. I want to hear what you have to say. See you then. Hi, this is Rod from Boomer Guitar Sessions. I personally wanted to thank you for being part of our community. If you like what we're doing here and you want to see more of it, please hit the like, subscribe, and share. And this helps me spread my musical messages to all over the world. Thank you. I appreciate you. And always remember, you can do this.